Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you are having a great Thursday. And I want to make another video for you guys. I am going to talk today about creating wealth through real estate. And really key with this is before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe, and support the channel. Those who watch these videos, really grateful for you and your support. And if this has helped you, please share the video as well so it can help others. But today I'm just going to talk about a couple of conversations I had recently with some wealth managers and accountants as we're planning to navigate wealth management. And there's so many different strategies out there when you think about growing your wealth. So how do you know, first of all, if you're at the wealth management stage, if you're ready to start making your money work for you? Absolutely first step is to save up an emergency fund. So ideally, you have about just a month's worth of expenses for personal expenses. If you're a business owner, then you also have a month worth of expenses saved up in an emergency fund for your business expenses. And then from there, you go as far as to 6 months savings. You can, if you want, before you get up to 6 months savings for an emergency fund for both a business, if you have one, or personal, I would recommend to pay off your debt, get to zero debt. So ideally, you're at 6 months expenses, 6 months expenses saved up, no debt. And at that point, you can consider two things. One, you can begin your wealth management creation and your plans and strategies. Or two, you can continue to save up. So ideally, you're going to want as much money as you can saved up. Anything that comes after that in terms of income can be used for investment strategies. So here's the thing. I've had a conversation because I'm sort of at that place of the a year and a half worth of savings plus no debt, and trying to navigate and figure out how exactly to create wealth from that. So I had a conversation with a guy who's 70 years old, his PhD in economics, and he works as a wealth manager and tax guy. And actually, this is super neat. Some really amazing conversation. Guys, I found out later the guy's a millionaire, multimillionaire. So it helped a lot to just spend 45 minutes. We had 45 minutes together on the phone. And we were talking, and he basically asked me my situation. And basically, I'll establish that, we got to the point where I told him where I'm at, which is what you guys know now. And what is the next step? Like, what do I do? And he found out, he asked me how much I made last year. I told him, and he says, okay, the first thing you need to do is to triple your income. And I'm like, okay, great. And honestly, I had some issues with that. I wasn't sure exactly, what to do in regards to, the financial side of things, and what am I going to do in terms of taking my situation to the next level? And that's what he had recommended. He said, triple your income. And once you triple your income, then take 55%, or so let's say you make $160,000 a year. Get down to about 50, pay your taxes. So it leaves you about 110, and take $55,000, live off that, and then take another $55,000. And then that will be what you invest. And then he said, basically take that $55,000, and he said, guess how much you would make at $55,000 you save every year for 30 years at year 30 at 8% return per year. Like, how much do you think that would be? And I said, no, maybe $2.5 million. He goes, no, 6.7 million. So this guy does seminars on the weekends, and he typically is coaching a lot of people through their financial situations, retirement, things like that. He says his youngest client is 55 years old. And, people retire at 65. You can start withdrawing from a retirement account at 59 and a half. But if the youngest person he's at is 55 years old, he was telling me that people generally don't think about this stuff. And he has like no millennial clients at all. And, but that's the key. The key to growing your wealth is time. But at 55, there's not much left before retirement begins. So if you're younger, like, I told him I'm 32. So, he's like, you're in a fantastic situation, to build, to really use time as your leverage, and to leverage time to your advantage. And the key though is goes back to that. It says triple your income. Okay, cool. Once you triple your income, take the 55,000, live off of that, and then the other 55,000, you can invest. So then it's like, so then the question was, okay, so what do I invest in? And he says, well, and it's funny because he was telling me about 8%, right? How do you get 8%? And so in my mind, I'm like, all right, wise guy, tell me how you're going to make 8%. He's like, that's easy. The guy had 12 businesses, and one of them, he says, he does solar refrigeration, and you can invest into those companies. He's happy to pay 8%, 9% a year. So, it's incredible, like, to think that, yes, you could take your bang or your money to the stock market, and try it there. And, they even say historically you get 8% a year, in safe stocks, right? Or safe funds over a period of 30 years, over long term. But a business can also yield that, and perhaps is even a little bit safer and less volatile to the market conditions. Of course, nobody could see, like, say, for instance, COVID-19 is a little bit more extreme. Nobody could see this coming and literally shut off the economy, basically, in major parts and several parts of it. So it's not a standard disaster or recession, if you will. Let's put it that way. It's not a standard recession. So, it is what it is. But as you're thinking about in terms of your financial plan, like how to invest, you can invest in businesses. He also brought up how you can invest in real estate. And that's the topic here, is how do you invest in real estate? And there's so many ways, right? So the basics are you have wholesaling. For those of you who don't know wholesaling, it's basically acquiring a property. So let's say, for instance, just get a block of homes on a street. Let's say they're average $200,000, just for easy number's sake. Average price point in Arizona, by the way, is around it's like just over 300 right now. But say 200,000 is the average price of the homes there, and you're calling homeowners and seeing if anyone's interested in selling their home, perhaps distress situations, pre-foreclosure, or these kind of, or maybe they just lost their job, or they inherited some situation where they need to sell their home, and you say, okay, your house is worth 200. I'll buy it from you for 175 because they only owe, say, 100,000. They have the equity. It's fine. They can do that. So they do it. So they're selling it to you for 175, and that property will turn around right away and sell for 200. So what do? You're, as a wholesaler, you could buy it yourself, or you have a buyer's list of investors that can buy that property at 180. See how it works now. And wholesaler makes their money off of acquiring at a low price, selling it to an investor, or buying it themselves at that price, or a little bit price higher if they're selling it to an investor. And then that investor turns around with the 20,000 gap. They can either improve the property, turn it into a rental, etc. So it's like a win-win. To wholesalers are the ones that's sort of your work. The work is you're calling, you're soliciting for, you're marketing basically and soliciting for home sellers, and then they turn around and sell the house. And that's typically what wholesalers do. They will sell the property to an investor, and they create a buyer's list. So there's wholesaling. Then there's the buy and hold, traditional buy and hold, where you just buy a house to rent. The key to that though is how much you put money down. So if you're as an investment property, which typically when you do an investment property, 20% is typically the standard of money down. But if you can put 30%, or even 40 or 50% down on a property, you can start to cash flow immediately. Of course, you're putting a large sum down, and to get that money back over time it'll take some time. But if you can cash flow enough, let's say on a $200,000 home, you buy it at say 180, you put 20% down, which is just under 40,000. So you owe 80, 60, 140. Is that right? So yeah, when you buy a house, 200,000, 180,000, you buy it for. It's worth 200. Buy it for 180. Put 40,000 down. Now it's 140. So you owe 140. So then your rent you're charging is the equivalent of a $200,000 home. So if the mortgage on a $200K home would have been, let's say, $1,300, your mortgage at $140,000 loan would be closer to maybe about $1,000 a month, maybe even like in the 900s, depending on your interest rate, et cetera. So then at that point, you cash flow $300, $400 a month. So that's kind of neat. So now every month from month one of your new home is making at least $300. Now, the point is that you're not only going to live off of that 300 or even use that 300 solely for reinvesting back into the property, but you can. So you can use that $300, pay, because by the way, if you have costs, right? Sometimes HOA, if there's HOA, that's typically not covered by the renter or the tenant, that you're as a landlord or the owner are paying for that. Also, it repairs, massive costs, right? And depending on the renter that you have, can determine how much you're paying for repairs throughout the 30 years that you're having it rented out. So the goal is not to pay it off in 30 years. So what you want to do is you want to put it in a 15-year loan. Put a 15-year loan, put as much money down as you can, and then you want to pay that off as soon as possible. So going back to your income, right? So if you triple your income, and then you have, let's say, $50,000 a year, because you're living way below your means, you have $50,000 a year to put into investments, you can pay a house like that off in about 3 to 4 years. So you can do this process every 3 years and buy a new rental property. Here's the cool thing is that it acts sort of like a forced savings. So you have that $55,000, you're putting it into an illiquid asset, a property. And then you say let's say you're able to put $50,000 a year on that same property. So you owe 140 on year 0. Year 1, you put 50. Year 2, you put 50. Year 3, you put 50 plus interest, probably pay it off in 3.5 years. So you have a free and clear home, and then now you're cash flowing at $1,300 a month or $1,400 every year. You can increase rental rates in like 4% a year. It's a little bit more aggressive right now. A couple months ago, actually, as of a couple months ago in Arizona, the rental average, or Maricopa County, the average rental rate is about $1 a square foot, plus or minus 10 cents for most areas and types. Actually, single family is more accurate, but you're really looking at free and clear home. So, and then holding that long term while cash flowing $1,300 a month, increasing 4% a year, which you could. You don't have to, depending on how good your tenants are, if you want to keep them. By the way, if you have tenants that are super low maintenance and they just care for the home, keep them, obviously. And even give them discounts, because you want to incentivize those. Maybe some years skip even having them pay the 4% increase. Because you also want to, if your tenants will take care of you by really taking care of the house, then yeah, I mean, it's well worth your time, because then it becomes about how passive the investment becomes. What makes a rental not passive is the quality of the tenant that you have. If they're asking for every single little thing, which has happened, and I've seen it before, they ask, they call the landlord if there's the toilet roll, is like dislodged, and they have no idea how to do, which really only requires a screwdriver to tighten. And if they're calling you for that stuff, that's what takes away. And of course, that's what takes away from it being more passive. And if they're calling you for that, how much more of a headache is that for you? That's a significant headache. So you're really looking at how much involvement you want, and having a good tenant is really important for that. So you do that every 3 years. Let's say you're getting a new property every 3 years, right? And you're doing this. And of course, your income is not just tripled at year 1, right? Let's say you're assuming you're still working hard, and maybe you're opening up new businesses. Now you're, instead of $55,000 a year that you're saving, now you're saving $60 in 3 years, and then $75K a year in 5 years or whatever. So you're growing your income, and then you're able to expedite this process of buying rental properties and then paying them off. So now what's cool about those is that, different from an IRA, you're putting $6,000 a year, unless you're over 50, I think, then you can put $7,000. And then you have to wait. You can pull it out for specific reasons. First time home buyer with no penalty. If you pull out anytime before, you have taxes plus penalty. And so the point of a retirement account is not necessarily to take, it's to hold it in there. But if you're putting it in real estate and you're holding it long term, then you can pay those properties off and cash flow today, right? So once they're paid off, that's $1,300 a month. Let's say you pay it off in 3 years. Now, until you sell the property, you're going to be making $1,300 a month plus 4% until you decide to sell. So what's cool about that is a retirement account, right? So as real estate becomes a retirement account, let's say you have 10 properties paying you all, let's just say in 30 years, right? And assuming you buy a house every 3 years, 30 years, they're all paying about $2,000. And that's not too far off to say. $2,000, they're all free and clear. $2,000 a month times 10 is $20,000 a month. Could you live off of $20,000 a month for retirement? Yeah, that wouldn't be too hard. That'd be pretty enjoyable, I think. And if you want, let's say that, so that's your retirement plan. What is the dollar amount that you want to have at retirement that you feel like you would want to live on? Of course, factoring in inflation and all that. And this is where the wealth management plan comes in, is what's your dollar amount that you need to have a good retirement? And so, so maybe that's $20,000 a month for you. Maybe that's $5,000 a month. So then adjust it. Instead of 10 homes, then it's only 3, right? Or if you want $50,000 a month, then bump it up, right? 25,000, or no, it's not 20, 25 homes, 25 single property homes that will yield $2,000 a month in 30 years. So totally up to you what kind of lifestyle. But that's the power really of the buy and hold strategy. It is long term, but once you pay it off, it starts paying you. And the trick is to be wise about what you take with what you do with the money that comes in from the rental income. So when you're at 5, right, 5 properties paying you, let's say $1,500, was that $7,500 a month? And let's say those 5 properties are free and clear. You just bought your 7th home. You're still paying on your 6th. Then you're using that $5,000 a month plus your savings to pay off number 6. And then once you pay off number 6, you take 1 through 6 and you use those funds for number 7. And then you see the snowball effect, right? So then it becomes easier to multiply. Basically, instead of adding homes, now you're multiplying. Now you're looking at buying a house instead of every 3 years, every 2, and then every 1, and then twice a year, right? So you can see how fun this can get, right? And there are people out there that have portfolios that are 50, 60, 70 large. The cool thing too is you don't actually have to wait for you to be so liquid, right? And to actually buy it with cash. You can leverage these. There's different ways. You can use loans. You can use the traditional bank loans, conventional loans, investment conventional loans, or you can use hard money loans. Or the best, and this is a little tip for you that I've learned, the best and cheapest money that you can get is non-real estate specific investor loans, meaning you just have friends that have a lot of money or contacts that have a lot of money. They don't have to be friends. You can network through real estate events. So you can network through, maybe you have friends that, know friends. But for the most part, everybody knows somebody that has money. That's a general rule. And they can invest in you. And if they're not real estate specific, then they can lend you at a rate that's much lower than what a bank would even give you, or a hard money lender. And by the way, one of the most expensive loans is a real estate involved hard money lender. They're going to lend you at the highest rates. The lowest I've heard of is 8%, right? And right now, I just had a client get 2.75% in interest for their primary residence. Of course, 2 different products. Primary residence, way different than an investment loan. Right away, you're looking at least 1 to 2% higher just by getting a conventional loan for a primary residence and an investment home. And then hard money just completely skyrockets it. Plus, the minimum requirements, usually what I've seen with hard money is 20% down. So it does take cash still if you're going to go the hard money route. But if you can get, a family friend or a friend, if they're willing to do it, right? Because there's all those sort of ethical and, relational. If you want to be someone who's trustworthy to pay that back. And if you, enter into a business relationship with a family friend, it does change your relationship. So is that something you're prepared to do? But other than that, if you have a family friend that you can front the money for you in a loan, then that's even more leverage for you to accelerate this buy and hold process. Then there's a fix and flip, which is probably the most involved. It's actually a job sometimes, like really hard to do part-time. You can do it part-time if you're doing like one house every 6 months, right? And but yeah, I mean, to scale that is pretty tough. But fix and flip, you've probably seen the shows, HGTV and all that kind of stuff. You basically do what wholesalers do if you want to save the money, and there's a lot of cost to that. So, right, you can either buy them from wholesalers, or you can do your own work and solicit to purchase homes. Acquisition cost is key. So if you have a $200,000 home, you're looking to get that for as low as possible, 60% ideal. 60% of market value would be key. Of course, these homes typically are going to be dilapidated. They're going to be distressed. They're going to be have some kind of at least minimum cosmetic issues and potentially even more serious issues, unresolved insurance claims, new roofs, all this kind of stuff. It adds up quick. So the more, the lower your acquisition costs, the way better it is for you. So let's just do another example. All right. So, and by the way, in February 2018, they tracked these investment deals in Maricopa County, and they find that there were 100 deals in February that grossed over $100,000 in profit, in gross profit, and that doesn't incentivize anybody to get into it, right? So of course, after all expenses, they're probably going to net 30, 40,000. But where can you net 30 to 40,000 in 6 months, right? So it's a good deal. And if you think about it, it's just part-time. But here's the thing. You're truly running a business at that point. So your acquisition costs, how you get the property, you either have a team of wholesalers, you've networked with people, or you're doing it yourself, which is a very involved process. I've dialed homes and asked them if they were interested in selling. And it is a lot of work because you don't get very many people that are interested, and the competition is really steep. 2018, I think it was. 2018 had 13,000 investment property deals out of 100,000. 13% of the market was comprised of investor deals, not including iBuyers. iBuyers meaning Open Door, OfferPad, and those kind of guys, which make up about 4%. So they're buying, and selling 4,000 homes. But these investors are doing 13,000 homes. So just imagine how much volume investor activity is. So it's very, very competitive. And when you're calling these people, chances are 10 other people have called them asking them if they've sold their house or they want to sell their house, and at a cheaper rate. And that's what I've experienced. So there's that challenge. And then once you purchase the house, how are you going to finance it? So, right, you go back to hard money. You go back to, if you have liquid assets, you can use your own savings, that kind of thing. Or you could have the private money outside of real estate. So you have someone who has money who's a friend of yours or a contact. But once you figure out the financing, then it goes down to like day one. As soon as it closes, that you're beginning the process of repairs. So now you've created a network, a team of contractors. And here's the thing: contractors, you have licensed, you have unlicensed, you have all kinds of. You have choices in that way. Just know that when you're reselling the home, there's a specific amount that buyers are going to want to be disclosed. Now, I have seen that if you use unlicensed contractors, that they will say, hey, seller never occupied the property, so go ahead and buy at your own risk. So, and you can do that. And actually people still buy it, because they'll do their inspections still and things will check out. And but having a contractor is key, and it kind of gives it a little bit more credibility, but also it's backed by a warranty typically. So they guarantee their work up to a year or whatever. So you can use that as selling basis, but you're looking at a much higher rate than an unlicensed work, or do it yourself. So now that's another option. If you have the savvy, if you have the time to learn, you have the connections where friends could help you and teach you, then it becomes sweat equity and you can make greater margins. So you have the team, either do the repairs yourself or you have the team, and then they're going to fix the property. And it usually takes the average from acquisition to sale. The average hold time on a $200,000 to $300,000 home is about 180 days, and it goes up to about 500,000. It only goes up like 2 weeks. So it goes from 180 days to like 195, something to 200. at $500,000. But the sweet spot for buy and hold, for fix and flip, is between acquisition price between 200 to 300,000, and most of the deals are done in that range. It's a lot harder to get your margins unless you can acquire a property at a very low price once you start getting into luxury or $500,000 plus. So that's why you're seeing these starter homes that are completely distressed getting snatched up so quick, because they are being bought by these investors. So fix and flip, very involved, takes some expertise, a lot of risk, because a lot of it's dependent on you. So I would recommend having a mentor or someone that you can that can walk you through it, because they'll have the connections, they'll have the contractors, they'll tell you, they can basically look at the property with you and tell you how good of an investment this is, how flippable it is, what area, etc. And they'll know the areas in town, right? They can advise you. They may even have deals right away. They can say, hey, you want to take this one and we'll roll together and just pay me the fee. And what you'll do is they'll take a percentage of your profits, of your gross profits. And that's sort of the trade-off. Of course, you're going to want someone that has some backing, has some skill, and someone who's typically getting into coaching, right? So they've done, like 50 flips or 100, 200 flips. They start getting into coaching and they say, yeah, we'll do mentoring for you. And, we'll go out and do this. And that's another way to do it. So that's actually where if I were to do fix and flip, I would lend towards that. I would think I want a mentor for my first one or two before I jump in and start doing them myself. Even though I have my family, like my brother and my pops, they know how to do that stuff. Like basically the ins and outs. I would still want a mentor because acquisition, because of lending, and et cetera. Lastly, I forgot, with fix and flip, you also have to sell it. So you can either go for sale by owner or you can hire a realtor. If you hire a realtor, that's 6% also towards your bottom line. Negotiable, but 6% is customary, at least in Phoenix. Of course, you could work out a deal with your realtor, possibly if you're doing a high volume, that they could do a lot less for the listing side in order to help you. So it's all got to add up, but definitely it's a project, and to start doing multiple, it becomes fun, because then the way to scale that is through a team. And you're going to need, your team of wholesalers, your team of list of contractors. You think intuitively that you can just go with one contractor. You can't. Here's what happens. You have one contractor and, you guys start doing a couple deals. It goes well for you. They do a decent job. Everyone's happy. You do 4, 5, and 6. All of a sudden, they're starting to see your success. Then they go, well, we're raising the prices now on our work. And then what do you do? You either pay it, but then you go, no, you're cutting into my margins. So you go to another contractor. And that's what happens. That's what you do. You just go to another contractor. So that's the cycle. So you're starting to see, as I'm explaining this, that it takes a lot of work. There's a lot of work involved with fix and flip. So it is definitely a business, but it's very, very profitable if you're good, if you're persistent, and you can find the right deals and manage your team. Right? Manage your team for sure. So that's fix and flip. We got buy and hold. We have loans. So you can actually be a lender yourself. You could be a hard money lender yourself. You write the terms, you secure it through real estate, which is what the definition of a hard money loan is a loan secured by real estate. And you find these guys just the same way that people who need money find you. You'll network, right? You'll find people who want to buy, who are real estate investors, right, who are fix and flippers, et cetera. And you can just tell them, hey, I can write you a loan for $200,000, $250,000. And at this point, you would need to have that money cash. And when you come to an agreement, of course, you have contracts, you have your own lawyers. You can also do the mentor thing. They probably have their own contracts, standard boilerplate contracts you can use. And those contracts will basically almost be like a lender, like an actual official lender with a bank, and have all the legal jargon you need to protect yourself, and also your interests, and also, set yourself up so where that loan is beneficial for you. So things that banks think about is not what you think about. Now you want to be in the most first position that you can, because you're now holding a lien on somebody else's property. So there are there are two parties that are always before you as a lender, even if you're a bank. And it's property taxes is number one, and then 2 is the IRS. They're always before you. If the property owner owes back taxes, they're going to get paid property taxes. The county assessor will get paid first before you. If there's a judgment, if there's a bankruptcy, if there's a foreclosure, they get paid first. Second is if they're back taxes, if they owe interest or whatever, if they're in collections for something, then they get paid too. But it has to be an IRS lien, and they get paid second. And then you, as long as there's no other items, then third, you're paid as a lender. So you want to be careful as you're doing a title search that it's clean, like the title is clean, that there's no other outstanding judgments on your borrower. Of course, you're going to do your due diligence with them, your credit check, and all that stuff. So now you're understanding why. Maybe you could understand why a lender would pull all those things, because they want to make sure that you are a well-qualified buyer. And that's the same thing. You want to vet your potential buyer or borrower that they're well qualified. So then you lend. And here's the thing about hard money is that you're not lending for 30 years. You're only lending you can lend for 6 months. You can lend for 4 months. You can lend for 12. Longest terms I've seen, 18 months. And then renewable after 18 months. And that verbiage is in the contract. So if you are 18 months, let's say, for instance, someone writes a hard money loan for 18 months. And by the way, the longer the term, the more interest that you charge, because it's a higher risk to you. Say, for instance, I've had someone bought a client of mine's home, use a hard money loan, and got it at something like 18%, something like that, which is nuts. 18% is what the interest rates were for traditional loans, conventional loans in 1981. So, now I've had a client get 2.75. So someone's paying 18% on a loan, but that's the potential that you have when you're lending. So you can charge 18%. Where else could you get that? On the flip side, you're also exposing yourself to some significant risk, because hard money loans, first of all, hard money loans, if they're getting a hard money loan, it's because they can't qualify at a bank. So you're already leaning towards subprime. So that's one of the challenges of hard money loans. You're an alternative to the bank, and another option for investors. It's also a way for people who can't get the bank money, right? The traditional Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac money, or Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guaranteed money, if you will, through a conventional loan, or through traditional. That's more appropriate. Traditional means that they're using you as a hard money lender as leverage. So if they can't leverage the bank because the bank says you're not qualified anymore, you've either maxed out or you have too many properties, et cetera, then they come to you for additional money to leverage. So keep in mind that those are the kind of clientele that you're getting, right? So maybe not subprime. You're either getting unqualified traditionally to subprime. So adjust your fees, adjust your interest rates accordingly, so that you can make it beneficial for you. So, and then if they want to refinance or continue another hard money loan after 18 months, then it's renewable. Then again, it's like originating a new loan. You could charge more fees. You could do, and so, and the way that you protect yourself in a hard money loan is two things. Three things I can think of. There's many ways, but three main things. One is you vet your borrower as much as possible. Get references, interview them, credit check, background check. You want to see work history, right? Like literally underwrite these people like a bank would. And that would actually, just like, getting a renter into your house, you want to know that someone's living in your property. You don't want somebody who's going to trash it. Same way, you're giving somebody $250,000 in cash to buy a property. You don't want somebody just to not take that seriously. Right. So it's same thing, whether it's a house or it's your cash, you want someone who's going to take care of that and do their end of the deal to take care of your assets, whether it's paper, whether it's digital, or whether it's an actual physical home. So vet your borrowers, make sure they're well qualified. Two is to get money down. So the more risky the borrower is, the more money you would require down. So 20% is typically the minimum I've seen. And by the way, sometimes borrowers will try to borrow their down payment. And that's, if someone's willing to do that, just skip. Because what happens is if they don't even have money to put down, they have no skin in the game. If they're trying to go zero down on a hard money loan, I would be very, very wary of that. And I would actually be cautious about their financial fitness to be able to pay your loan. And then two is that who's in first position, the down payment or you? And now you have another party that has a lien to the property because they're giving a hard money loan as well for the down payment. So they also own a piece of the property. And you don't want another, investment entity that you have to go to battle with on a claim to your finances when you've put $250,000 and somebody say put $40,000 for a down payment. So be very, very wary of that, underwrite that, ask, where did you get the money? Do you have this as cash? And you need to verify that through bank statements, or even as a proof of funds and how long those funds have been in there and the origin of those funds. So there's that. The down payment is very key. Go higher if they're less qualified. If they're subprime, totally up to you what your comfort level is, and that's the beauty of investing, right? Is the beauty of writing loans, is that you get to choose how much risk you want to expose yourself to. So vetting your borrowers, down payment, and then the asset that they're buying. So what are they buying it for? Right? Are they going to buy it to do an assisted living home rental? Are they buying it to do an Airbnb, which by the way has completely been wrecked right now and for COVID-19? Again, completely extenuating circumstances, but Airbnb has its own risks, right? Are they doing it to buy and hold? Pretty safe. So what is their use of it? And if they're going to do a business on it, like a group home, assisted living home, something like that, I want to know how effective they are at business owning. Have they done it before? Who's going to be in their corner? How much in reserves do they have? I mean, if they're just, first time, I'm, fly by night, this is a good idea. I have just barely enough money to do it. I don't know. You're taking a big risk now on that individual. So then there's even more vetting that has to happen. So your use is important, but also the asset. So appraise the asset. Run comps. Have your realtor run comps. You could even have an appraiser come in there and see, because hard money in a real estate transaction, hard money is basically the same as, because you're giving a hard money loan, it's basically the same as cash and it's treated as such. So there isn't necessarily a need for appraising. If you do buy a house cash, you can waive an appraisal if you want, or you could have one, either way. That's why sellers like cash offers, because they don't have to worry about the appraisal. Typically a cash buyer will waive it. But you cannot. You can say, I require an appraisal based on what you're going to, buy it at, right? So there's many. You're now thinking in the mind of a bank. It can be very profitable. I do know of some people who they were telling me they wrote a check, for like $275,000 to their borrower, and it was like their first time, and they were like shaking doing it because you're giving somebody this much money. But your contracts and your deal and all that is set so that you're backed, right, by the hard money or the asset, really. And also the down payment, right? There's a down payment there, and I would not recommend zero down in any way, shape, or form. There's probably people out there that are making a killing doing that. To me, I wouldn't jump into something like that. So you have that, and so we have buy and hold, we have fix and flip, we have lent notes, and then you have short-term rentals. Right, so you have Airbnb is another one, and Airbnb is actually okay. So considering that it's not 2020, it can be very profitable, but it can be also very involved. It's like another business. So, and by the way, when you're writing notes, not as involved. Once you write the check, all you're doing is you're servicing the payments. So you're just calling them. If they're late, you have stipulations for that. But typically they're going to make payments every month, and it's a lot more passive. And the only maintenance is in the event of a missed payment or default. And then at that point, even if you had to run through a foreclosure process or requiring the property due to default, it's not going to be as much work as a fix and flip. So, and then the law is sort of, because the contract and laws are there to protect you. When you're talking about Airbnb, now you're talking about, so you acquire the property, you're typically remodeling it, making it very modern, right? And then you're hosting it on sites. Now you can be as aggressive as just putting it on Airbnb or VRBO, or you can put them on Expedia and like all these travel websites. But then at that point, you're now converted to an Airbnb business. Like that's now your business. So very, very involved when you start marketing on multiple platforms, because scheduling, they don't sync together. So you're having to manage all these books and guests and things, and you're keeping a calendar straight. That's a lot of admin work that you could hire someone to do. You could get an assistant to do, or an Airbnb property manager to do. But then it's cutting into your fees. So sometimes they'll charge 8% per listing or per booking for management. And of course, they're not just going to get the booking for you. They're not going to advertise. Well, I guess so. There's two different types. You can have acquisition of booking, and then they have someone do that job, and then you can have somebody who is managing the guests during, so servicing your clients or your guests. And I've seen full service. So like, let's say if you want to break it down into percentages, a full service Airbnb company, meaning they basically acquire and they manage the entire ship from A to Z, from acquiring to the guests leaving and leaving reviews, and they get everything, and they'll make your home really marketable and grow your business. I've seen it as low, and this was like a year and a half ago. I see it as low as 26%. I negotiated a company to get to 26% of your gross. And there's now some that are coming out that are like in the 30s, sometimes even 35, because Airbnb has become profitable and there's a lot of money there. Thing too is Airbnb is increasing their rates because they know that they're essentially just a marketing company. They're a platform for you. Like, they don't own anything. They don't own your house. They don't own, they're not subletting anything. They own zero real estate, as far as I know. I think I heard that they were going to start acquiring properties, but I don't know for sure. I haven't heard any updates, and definitely not acquiring right now. But they're taking a larger piece of the pie because of I think, well, really two reasons. One is because one there's actually when they stay at your house, and I've even experienced this in my own, they become repeat clients. So they don't go through Airbnb. And then two, they're noticing that the Airbnb clients are making a good amount of money out of this. So they want a larger piece of the pie because they can take into their constituents, I guess, if you want to say, their clients, Airbnb hosts, gross profits. So it's more for them. So there is a way around that. You can go and do your own marketing, create your own website, run your own Facebook ads, do your own marketing, and you can do it that way. But there's a reason why Airbnb is as giant as they are. They actually recently just got bailed out by private money. They got a $1 billion private money bailout from investors. So I guess if you're big enough to get that kind of bailout, then they're in. And there's a reason why that when you just put your property on Airbnb, you can pretty much run your business on one platform, pretty much, because they're that giant. They're that known as the marketing, the vacation rental marketer of choice, and also where consumers go to look for properties to stay in. And it's cool because actually Airbnb has created this culture of excellence, so you're seeing houses getting really competitive. You're seeing these like very modern, very trendy kind of homes, or these unique experiences that, because now it's not, in 2017, when my family first got into it, there was hardly any Airbnbs around. When word got out, 2018 was a little bit harder, 2019, and now like there's several properties, right? People are converting their rental properties or even doing their own primary residences, renting a room or two out if they're empty nesters to guests, and it's making them residual income. It's helping them pay their mortgage. So yeah, the competition has gotten more severe, and it's requiring people to make very, very excellent listings. And when you see on Airbnb that your reviews are king, so that's really what brings about more clients. They look at your reviews. The social proof there is an incredible amount of weight towards your success on Airbnb. And also repeat referral. I mean, I guess repeat referral business is also important there. You know, it happens like actually this year, people that stayed in my property last year, I'd say I probably had like, I think 7 or 8 bookings last year. And about 3 of them texted me directly and said, hey, I would like to stay again. You know, is your house still available? I couldn't find it on Airbnb. Don't have to go through Airbnb that second time. And, you know, it kind of works out. So it's amazing. You know, once you stay once some of the guests stay one time, they just feel like, oh, that's my go-to guy. I liked it. It was good enough. They do a good job. I'm going to go back again. So there's going to be business there. Cleaning it, that can be very stressful. So you can yield 10% of your gross profits towards cleaning it if you hire cleaners. And it depends how much involvement you want there, because you typically still need to go to the house, look at it, and hold them accountable. Because what I've noticed is sometimes I've hired cleaners, and cleaners, their level of the quality of the work actually decreases, especially if you don't check it. So like probably like 4 or 5, I walked in there and I'd see hair in the bathroom floor, and you know, I'd see crumbs in certain parts. I'm just like, all right, slacking, because haven't said anything. So I'd actually come over there and let her know I saw this, took pictures, and it immediately corrected slightly, but immediately like corrected in a way that was acceptable. But then you have to manage people, right? You have to manage your cleaners. You have to still inspect the property. A single family home, 2,500 square feet, will take about 4 to 4.5 hours cleaning sheets, cleaning the floors, mopping the floors, the surfaces, and the bathrooms, making everything turned as if it was like ready, like completely clean. You couldn't tell there was a guest there. 4 to 4.5 hours. That's with a system. Like you've done it probably at least 5 or 6 times, and you just know like what you need to do. And you're like, you've had it, you know, the washing machine cycled in a way that's, you know, systematic and all that kind of stuff. So 4 to 4.5 hours. So if you're doing that 2 to 3 times a week, that's already almost 8 to 12 hours of your time just cleaning, right? 8 to 13 to 14 hours. It's a lot of time. And then you're also managing the guests. You know, sometimes guests they'll say stuff like, you know, oh, you don't have a spatula here, or your pot's broken, the handle broke, or whatever. Or I've had this happen. Your toilet clogged. My mom was having her birthday, right? It was her 60th birthday. And my Airbnb guests called and said, I'm sorry, I'm so embarrassed to say this, but your toilet clogged. It was like 1 hour before the party started. So I ran over there, and you know, it's not plungeable, right? So it's one of those, it was really clogged. They had left. We have a snake. So we used a snake, and we went to the drain outs and snaked the drain outs. And then we went back inside, and it was clogged like through the shower, so that it was like, there was water on the floor. So we had to mop that and clean it. And it was just like, then we went to the party, right? So that's your life, right? Your life as an Airbnb host is you're now 24/7. Like if someone's staying from checking in at 11 a.m. and they check out at 3 p.m., from that time, you've got to be there, because that determines their experience, right? Because if not you, then who? Then you're hiring a handyman, cuts into your profits. So totally up to you. It is definitely, it's a part-time job. Even with one property, maybe. I guess if you do everything yourself, it is a part-time job. If you hire out the cleaners, and then you can do some of the maintenance, which is what I did, fine. You can make it happen with very minimal impact to your daily life. If you own a business, it's probably more possible to do. But if you work 9 to 5 and you have, I guess if you don't work weekends and only host it on the weekends, but again, the key is you got to make it work for you. But just understand it is not as passive as you think. And at 30%, if someone's taking 30% of your gross, you're really only going to make about 8%, maybe. And keep in mind, 8 to 12, depending on your location and all that kind of stuff. But keep in mind that Airbnb continually raises the rates of how much they're charging hosts per booking. And if you're relying on Airbnb solely for your bookings, your profit margins year over year are going to be reduced. Yeah, sure, you can charge more, but also understand that competition is also increasing every single year, actually on an almost daily basis. I will say as an update that right now for 2020, the Airbnb market, at least in Arizona, has actually decided, since they're not making any money, they're either converting them into rentals, long-term rentals, which basically takes them out of the short-term rental market for an entire year, or they are selling them. So if you want to pick up an Airbnb property, you possibly can. However, just understand you're probably not going to run that for some time. Like, we only have just gotten an update in Arizona about stay-at-home orders being extended to May 15th and the slow rollout of reopening of businesses and the general public. So it seems, based on that information, we have some time before Airbnbs will start to be prevalent again. Although there are people who are doing it anyway, and that's, up to them. But it's not going to be, I mean, anyone who's doing Airbnb now is not doing it for profit. They're basically trying to cut their losses for this year. So you need, if you're going to look to buy an Airbnb property, you just need to figure out if you can hold it long term, or if you just want to rent it for a year, ride the storm out like some are doing, and then next year you can go back and join the Airbnb market again. But there are definitely people exiting. People are selling it. Some of those people who are buying it are probably going to go into it later, or they just want a really nice house. So, because those Airbnbs, by the way, are, when you remodel them, they're also being cleaned 2 to 3 times a week, especially in the prime season, sometimes more. They're being very well maintained, well taken care of. Things are being observed, right? And Airbnb clients, they tend to be more low. I've noticed they're more low maintenance. They only call you when they need something. But the amount of impact that someone can have on a home within only about 16 hours versus someone who's staying there 365 days is way less. So you're going to get a lot more mileage, I think, out of your property in terms of condition than you would with a traditional buy and hold. So there's that. And okay, 52 minutes. Okay. So if you're still with me, appreciate it. And I will go through one more. And this is sort of like a bonus one for you. And it's the one that's the most emerging. So probably 2014 to 2016, Airbnb was beginning to emerge. It really blew up probably around 2018. From what I've seen in the local markets, it was like say in the area that my family was running Airbnbs, it was like one of like 4 in end of 2017. By end of 2018, it was one of like 35 in the area. And then when I say the area, it's like within like 1 to 2 square miles. So rapidly increasing, and now we're in 2020, right? So 2019 had its own growth and boost in the Airbnb space. The bonus one I'll give you, and this one actually is the one I'm leaning towards the most because I know it probably the most and my family knows it the most. And by the way, when you're thinking about investing into something, invest in the things that you know. So if you don't have the knowledge, get someone who does and become an expert at it. Do all the due diligence you can. You need to become an expert at what could happen, right? Because if things go wrong, what could happen, and you're planned for it, right? You have the emergency savings. You're in a position where you can float crises or economic downturns or things like that, or unforeseen circumstances, right? Because it's not a matter of if they'll happen, it's when, right? So emergency funds can pad that, right? And emergency contingency plans can tide that. So the bonus really is it's assisted living home rentals. Oh, I guess you could do 2: assisted living homes and assisted living home rentals. So here's the cool thing about assisted living home rentals and assisted living homes. Now, when I say that, I say you can either own and operate your own assisted living home, or you can have an assisted living home rented out to another business owner. So you're the property owner, you're the landlord of that business, and you're just renting it out to someone who's running the business on your property. So I'll go into 2. So for the first one, we'll just go into assisted living home rentals. If you're going to get a rental, you're buying a traditional buy and hold home, basically. But it's way better, in my opinion. So I'll try to keep this as unbiased as possible, but it's way better. And here's why. So you're basically, you're going to be looking for a very specific type of property. The key to assisted living homes is the amount of rooms that you have and the area, of course. So if you get in a good area and you have at least 4 rooms, if you can find a house with 5, even better. keep in mind you're not, because you can find 4-bedroom homes a lot easier that are 2-story. Can't do a 2-story on an assisted living home. I guess you can, but now you're looking at installing an elevator and all this kind of stuff, and that's just not the way. So it must be a 1-story. So typically standards are 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. Sometimes new builds are not doing 5-bedroom homes. There's 2 tiers, or I'll go through all the 3 tiers. There's 3 tiers of assisted living homes. There's and when I say assisted living homes, I'm talking about assisted living homes for the elderly. Key thing there. So you get licensed with Arizona Department of Health Services. This is Arizona specific, by the way. You get licensed to Arizona Department of Health Services. You can get a license for 5 with no modifications to the property except for ADA. So they require ramps. They require grab bars in the bathrooms, fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, of course, but in specific areas, and all these other little stipulations, how many trash cans you need in every room and all this kind of stuff, right? Your cabinets need to be able to be locked. Those are just some examples. So that the residents can't get to your cabinets, specifically like cleaning supplies or the drugs, of course. You need to have their medications are not accessible to your patients, and et cetera. So you have that. And then, your location is key because it will determine the kind of clientele that you'll get. Now, the common model for assisted living homes is that they want, get a cheap house. Like when I say cheap, I mean like entry-level home in an area that's okay, and just run the business with those kind of clients. What you'll end up getting is all-tech patients, or patients that pay very, very low amount in the business. And this can sound a lot in the beginning, and I'm going to go through the numbers. In the business is when you have an all-tech patient, which all-tech is actually it's a government-backed resident. Basically, a patient or an elderly person has completely depleted their assets, and that's the only way to qualify for all-tech is you have to have completely depleted assets, 0 assets. And then you apply for it, and then what they'll do is the government will pay for that elderly person's assisted living home care. But they're only going to pay, they're not going to pay the market rate. They're only going to pay at tiers. So there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and all the tiers depend on their level of care. So let's say, for instance, you want a tier 3 person, right? Like, okay, tier 3 pays, I think, $2,800 a month or something like that. Tier 1 is like $2,000. Tier 2 is like $23. Tier 3 is like it's $28. If you do, let's say you want a tier 3 person, well, okay, cool. You're making $2,800 a month from that one patient. That sounds like a lot of money, but consider this: $2,800 a month is less than $100 a day. And how much does a hotel cost nowadays? $120, $130. And they're not serving you food. They're not caring for you. They're not giving you baths every couple of days or every 1 or 2 days. They're not, exercising you. They're not taking, and now you're seeing like, this is the common model. The common model is that they're getting I would say, lower paying clients, and just going by volume, filling up for 5 bedrooms, which, by the way, one of the greatest challenges of any new assisted living homeowner is occupancy and getting clients. Because what makes somebody who just had enough money and just took the steps to get an assisted living home qualified to take care of somebody's life, right? So that's where your marketing, right, and getting that sort of credential in your community, right? Because that's what it's about. Most of your clients, if you go by referral, are going to be through community, and it's going to be around your area anyway, because people are going to want to be local and visit their parents at a local home, right? They don't want to travel 20, 30 minutes. Even if you have a nice home, even if you're a luxury home, they'll find another luxury home closer to them because they just want to be close, right? Convenience. So that's why that's why area is so critical. Find a place that is very, very key for, it's very strategic for the kind of clientele. And then you can do demographic, right? There's realtors, and I do have access generally to the average incomes of a specific neighborhood, or in the demographic, right? How old by age, like the age distribution of the population in a given neighborhood. And it's incredible what the data is out there. It's pretty amazing, actually. But you're going to need to know this, right? So have somebody in your corner that is going to do the research for you. So, but yeah, so you have somebody, you find a qualified tenant who's a business owner, right? So now, again, same thing like loans, that you're finding somebody who's qualified as a business owner and you're vetting them to make sure that they have the credentials and the wherewithal, right, and the skills to make a successful business, because you're not signing a 1-year lease with these people. You're signing a 3 to 5 year lease. And that's a difference, is that in residential, it's 1-year leases, month to month, right? Short-term rentals, you're doing a few days to 1 month to 6 months. You're doing 3 to 5, and that's how businesses operate, right? So when you look in the mall, right, like say, your average retail store, right, in your local mall, they're not signing 1-year leases. They're signing 3, 5, 7, 10-year leases on those properties, and they have different ways of paying their rent, right? So if they're seasonal, right, let's say for instance, I know they're a Halloween shop, right? Then yeah, they get those cases, they get a short term, like they're coming in like August, right, or September at some point, mid-September, and opening the store for like 6 weeks, and then they're basically just giving a large portion of their profits towards that, and it works out right for the tenants, but you're signing a 3 to 5 year lease. So if you have somebody who's going to occupy your property and run a business, you're going to want somebody pretty solid. There's an advantage to this. If you find somebody solid, if you find somebody who's going to run a successful business, that's where it pays off for you. So here's the beauty of assisted living home rental, is that if you find the right person, you sign, let's say, a 5-year lease, you're charging up to sometimes double the market rent. So that's the first sweet deal. So let's say, for instance, that $1,500 example a month, let's say someone's paying, that's a traditional buy and hold, someone's just occupying and living in it. Assisted living home rental, that same property, when it's configured for assisted living, meaning they have the ramps, they have the license, right? I forgot to say that. They have to have a license on the property. So it's licensed for 5 to conduct assisted living home residential services. You rent that out. They run their own business name, right? And they're taking liability, of course. The business owner is the ones that are taking the liability on that. Not all of it. I'll talk about that later. But you're charging them up to $3,000 a month for the same property. And that's incredible, because you're now, instead of making, 1,500 times, 12, what is that? 1,500 times 12 is 18,000. Now you're making 36,000 a year if you're charging 3,000. So way, way better in terms of profits. It gets better than that. An assisted living home rental, you can also have the tenant, since it is a business, be in charge of all of the repairs. Now, here's what's cool about it. DHS has specific standards. Obviously, your roof can't be leaking. Your AC has to be working, especially in Arizona. That would be a massive health hazard for the patients. And everything has to be in working order. And even cosmetically, things have to be in presentable condition. The house has to be clean. Things can't be worn or torn or anything, or deferred. Some cosmetic things if they don't do the lawn, right? So it's not like the end of the world. Unless there's an HOA, then they'll say something about it. But here's the cool thing, is that you might not even have to go in there and do anything, because the DHS will do a annual inspection on the property and see what the condition of the home is, and make sure that it passes all of their inspections. If something is leaking, if they find something leaking, if they find something like a faucet is leaking, they can write these things up. And if you have a citation, then or what they call them deficiencies, then it goes on your public record on the DHS website, which is actually a hit towards your marketing and your credibility in the community. And then 2, they come back next year and do it. If you pass with 0 deficiencies, then they come back in 2 years. So if you sign a 5-year lease, and if they have somehow managed to do 0 deficiencies, which, by the way, if they do 0 deficiencies and they go in 2 years, if they have 0 deficiencies, they're probably already running a well-run business. So chances are you don't need that extra check. But if they have that extra check in the year, they're going to have to fix that up in order for them to run their business. So or at least to have a credible business in the community. So it's an extra built-in accountability. And the cool thing is you can have them responsible for paying for it. So if the AC breaks, you can have your business owner pay for that. And that's normal, right? That's normal in the assisted living home rental industry. A roof needs to be replaced. Okay, well, I mean, if in an assisted living home rental situation, the tenant should be doing their due diligence and finding these things out, because they are assuming a business, and basically they're buying a house without putting it on their name. So they need to know how old the roof is, right? Because of what they can expect. Of course, all of that's negotiable. They could say, well, if it only has 10 years left out of a 20-year roof, then we'll pay only this much money. And that would be, if you're looking to rent one, then that would be what would be wise and prudent. So you're looking to have them fix your house, pay double the rent because they're running a business on it, and that's just how the market is for assisted living home rentals. And then you're basically almost completely passive. Now, here's some of the things that you need to do in order to make sure that you're protected. One is liability. Now, if somebody slips and falls under the business owner's watch, you're also the homeowner. As an investor, right? You bought the house, you're renting it to someone, you're also the homeowner. So they could sue that caregiver, they could sue that business owner, and they could sue the owner of the property. And if you're the owner of the property, now you're in liability. And that's what I was telling you about earlier about liability. That's why insurance is one layer. Insurance is your first layer against liabilities. So what's common about this is you choose your insurance based on how much assets you have, and also how much risk you're willing to defer, right? So I've seen $1 million insurance plans, $2.5 million, $5 million. We're talking about people's lives here, right? These are human beings, and if people slip and fall, that you could be sued for quite a amount of money, and it just goes down the chain. They're going to hit every possible person who is involved in that, and even if you were just a passive person, you could still get sued. So insurance is your first layer. Your second layer is, of course, contracts and writing as much as possible, deferring your involvement in it, right? Because you're just completely zero involvement, except for possibly having the license on it, and then them just assuming your license for 3 to 5 years or however long. There's another thing. And and the cool thing is now you've guaranteed a tenant there for 3 to 5 years, right? Especially if they're successful, right? The most ideal client I think you're looking for is someone who already has homes and they just want to scale their business, and they have money and they're able to put a good security deposit down, which is not going to be 1.5 times the month's rent. You could do a sizable security deposit. If you're paying $3,000 a month, you could make it. I don't know, was it $7,500, right? Or even want to check this because it's probably different with commercial rentals, but you could probably even charge more, right, for that. So $10,000 is a pad, right? And also in the event that your house goes vacant, they break their lease, you keep the deposit. I mean, it's a really good situation. It just exposes you to liability, and it takes a little bit more know-how to find the right people to get into your home, right? So your population of potential tenants is now much smaller. So now you're networking into those small, like those assisted living homeowners, or those who are in the healthcare field. Nurses are, a lot of times nurses do this, or investors are interested in this. A lot of times they just front the money, and then they'll just have nurse friends, or provide the opportunity for someone to run the business, and do the caregiving and all that stuff. So that's assisted living home rental, and I'll give you the other piece. So you can also run your own assisted living home. Now this one is actually it's very misunderstood, and I want to be very upfront with you guys. It's a very misunderstood business because there's a lot of money in it. I'll just tell you straight up. There's a lot of money in assisted living home business. You could make, some one home, right? So So I was talking to you about earlier that you could, get an all-tech patient at $2,800 a month. And it seems like, wow, you make $2,800 a month off of one patient. And then you put 5 of those in there, and that's $15,000 a month or so, about 14. And you go, that's amazing. And then you think, yeah, it is, right? Where you make that. But then how much work are you doing? You have caregivers, right? And burnout. It is a very, very, very tiring business to be in because it's 24/7. And the patients, bless their hearts, they all come with their own different challenges and health issues, right? If you have a tier 3, you're probably looking at someone who possibly has dementia, Alzheimer's. They can't walk. They're not ambulatory, so they can't walk. They're 200 pounds. Imagine some of the patients have to be Hoyer lifted. So if you have to Hoyer lift, a client or 2 or 3 or all 5 of them, right? And they're 200 pounds plus. I mean, you're looking at a very, very challenging life, and it's every single day with zero break, unless you hire someone, a caregiver. But then that's also taxing on them. And that comes to another problem. Another problem is you have your labor force. There's not a lot of people that want to do this job, and it's really, really not for everybody. And it takes a lot of perseverance and willpower because it's very tiring and it accumulates very, very quickly, the fatigue. So what you'll find in the industry is you'll have a lot of people that will burn out, owners and caregivers alike, because it's just so demanding. So a lot of things to consider there, but it does make a lot of money. And here's the positive. I have clients who currently operate homes that are in at the average price point of the home is $500,000. Some of the houses they have are worth closer to 7. One of them is worth closer to 4. One of them is worth closer to 7. I'm telling you that because in the neighborhood it's in, the average price point is $500,000 plus, actually almost 600 now. And their clientele is paying a minimum of $5,000 a patient, private pay. So they're not restricted to the Altec issues. So meaning you could have someone who's very, very low maintenance, like they can walk, they can read, they can talk to you, they can eat their own meals, they could probably even set up their own meals, but they just need to be supervised. So supervisory care will pay $5,000 a month, but it has to. These clients of mine, they're been 22 years in the business. They've have a very, very good reputation, and they have a list of referrals. They just get calls in, and those particular clients of mine that do this business, they're basically in the business to extend life, and they've done it. People that were, there, like they were there for, they're like in hospice care, ended up living like 10 years later. Of course, it's nurse owned, right? So there's an advantage there. And the nurse has been a nurse for years. So I was RN operated, which is a massive. If you can partner up with an RN, it's very, very healthy for your cause because it instills more confidence in your business that you have the technical and medical skills to be able to service those clients. So RN, you gotta have. It helps a lot. But you can make $5,000, right, and then up towards to $6,000 to $7,000 a month for one client, right? And there are some that are doing $10,000. So you could gross $250,000, $300,000 for a client. $250,000 to $300,000 for a home, right? And if you go up to 10 bedrooms, right, or 10 bed homes, right? So you can have up to 10 bedroom or 10 patients in a home. Now you're looking at really multiplying your income. So it's actually pretty neat, actually. So what are the challenges of assisted living homeowners really? If you're running it yourself, so the employment force is really challenging. So employment force is challenging. To keep quality caregivers is really challenging. The stress, the amount of demand that it has on you, because it is a 24/7 business. There isn't any closed hours. Right? You're literally supervising to being part of someone's life to ensure that their ADLs, their sleep, everything is going well with them. So the level of involvement is pretty great as well in terms of your activity. So the stress level is another thing. And then finding clients, so every little thing's going to help you, right? So if you're an RN, if you have marketing skills, if you've networked, right, all this kind of stuff. But people need it, and baby boomers are getting older. And there's going to be a massive increase in assisted living home demand projected in the next 10 years. So you're going to be in a good position if you have an assisted living home to get clients. Now, the question is, how would you position yourself, right? What kind of clients are you going to get? Are you going to take the clients that are more difficult for a lower amount, or find your way into the higher price points? And I'm saying all that saying, I don't mean to be insensitive, right, about the kind of patients that you're getting, that it's about money or anything like that. But as a business owner, these are things that you need to think about for sure. So I basically went in depth with all of the, well, I won't say all, but many of the different types of real estate investing. And I wasn't actually expecting to go this long, but I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching. And yeah, I mean, I'll probably come out more in depth with some more ideas. And I'll tell you right now, I guess a little update for me. I'm actually trying to figure out myself how to, what areas I'll navigate. So I'll probably come out videos with more about like what direction I take, and almost maybe vlog it or something where you guys can benefit from the information that I get. But yeah, that's the stuff that I've come across, I've seen, or I've done, or been in very close contact to. So I hope that really helps you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Again, thank you for your support. Please like, comment, subscribe, as it really, really helps the channel. And yeah, I want to do these more, right? So I just need ideas. So if you want me to talk on something, feel free to reach out. Alrighty. Hope you guys are having a good one, and we'll catch you next time.